Hey everyone, welcome back to the Daily Blend Show with me, Reed Dailey. It is Friday, April 7th, 2023, and if you are new around here, this is the Friday Top 5 where I feature 5 things that I thought were notable or interesting across culture, music, basically just anything that I like and that I wanted to share. Before we jump into the show, I want to remind you that you can follow, subscribe, like, whatever, Daily Blend on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We are streaming on YouTube at Daily Blend and on Spotify and Apple. With all of that said, let's jump into this week's Friday Top 5. So the first story is all about the time is now. So Watches and Wonders, which is the new annual watch convention in Geneva, it replaces, I can't remember what the old one was called, but anyway, they renamed it to Watches and Wonders. And the biggest news for me, maybe not necessarily the most important or critical watch, but the biggest news was the fact that Rolex is putting display backs or exhibition case backs on their watches. So they've done this now in 2 different examples. The first is the Platinum Daytona. So if it wasn't hard enough to get a Daytona, now they've made it. Now they've got the Platinum one with the exhibition back. So good luck getting that, even if you had the money. And then they've put to bed their Celine line. I think I'm saying that right. And they've come out with a new perpetual, I think it's called the 1906, which was the first year that Rolex was registered as a name. And that's got a exhibition back. It's actually a really fantastic looking dress watch that sort of encompasses the Rolex brand in a very authentic, nice way. It also sort of looks like the Patek that came out this year as well. But back to what we came here to talk about, which was the Platinum Daytona. So they re-updated the Daytona with sort of smaller register hands and just sort of cleaned up some of the face of the watch. And then I think they've done a little bit of tweaking in terms of the lugs and just making it a little more wearable and slightly larger, I believe. But the fact that it's, it's got the display back, enough said. Go check it out. Go head over to Rolex.com to see what that looks like. We've obviously featured that image on our website. And if you know me, you know I'm a huge watch person. So we're going to be featuring a couple of the watches that I liked. We might even do a special edition show. You know what? Now that I'm saying it out loud, we're probably just going to do a special edition show of all the watches that I liked on, let's say, next week, probably either next Wednesday or we're doing it the following week when I'm back in town. But anyway, there will be an episode on all of the watches, and we might even try to do a little YouTube. I haven't actually done that much YouTubing other than just like ripping the audio and posting it to YouTube, but maybe we'll do some YouTube of, all the watches so we can kind of talk through the visuals there. All right, one of the things that I've been sort of toying around with and, I've been doing sort of in the background but not really flying the flag about it is just really trying to use Daily Blend as a platform to connect with people. And so what I've set up is a couple different Instagram accounts. Obviously, we've got the Daily Blend as the primary, but we've got one for cocktails, we've got one for music, we've got one for the podcast, the DJ House one, we've got one for sneakers. And, I just find that people sort of connect in groups or sort of not functional areas, but areas of interest rather. And, with the main channel, I'm certainly moving towards more just highlighting this show, both the Friday Top 5, the weekly rundown, and the sound off. But I also want to use the social media to highlight people that I find really like interesting storytellers, creatives, etc. And Richard Knapp, which you can find at Richard_Knapp with 2 P's, is a photographer that I've been turned on to more recently. I can't say that I've been following for a long time. His work has appeared international magazines and advertising campaigns for NBC, A&E, HBO, NFL, Southwest Airlines, Condé Nast, and I just think it's like one of these platforms to start highlighting all of these creatives doing really incredible things. So go over and check out Richard on Instagram. I've linked to his Instagram and website in the show notes. All right, next up, we are talking about my old hometown, I guess is what I would call it, a couple old hometowns ago, but Queens. So I lived in Queens for 6.5 years of my life, playing soccer at St. John's. And the Queens that I knew was sort of like a third fiddle. You had Manhattan, Brooklyn was kind of on the come up, and then Queens was way behind. And Queens has really like stepped up. I still think it's the third, but not as bad as it was. And Rolo's in Queens is just a fantastic looking restaurant that does a lot of their own beef cut downs and kind of butchery. And then they're doing some really great stuff above an open flame. And I've got a trip coming up to New York in a couple weeks. And so I'm looking forward to trying to make the pilgrimage, if you will, from Manhattan and talk a couple coworkers in going to Rolo's in Queens. But the Smoke Point team from YouTube did a great 16-minute documentary on them and just their day-to-day process in terms of how do they get, basically cows, they break them down, how they make all of their different dishes that is largely beef related. And I, first of all, thought the documentary was really well done. And the fact that they had this just incredible restaurant in my, old hometown was super interesting. So if you've gone to Rolo's, let me know in the show notes or just DM me. And, watch the documentary. I thought it was really great. All right, next up was things to watch. So I saw this in my Netflix feed, or not my Netflix, but my Amazon feed the other day. And it was Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. And I remember when I saw the trailer for this movie, Rihanna was in it, Kat DeVee was in it, and that other guy was in it that I can't remember his name. But I was like, wow, this is going to be the next Fifth Element. And I certainly thought this, and I thought it would become either like an instant hit or become a cult classic. I don't know if it's actually become either. I could see this movie, in 10 years just catching on and people being like, oh my God, I love this movie. And then 20 or 30 years from now, they're like, oh, it's become a cult classic and let's remake it. But it was a visually stunning and action-packed adventure that sort of blended science fiction, fantasy, and cinema together. The critics gave total mixed reviews on this. I thought it was good, not great, but definitely worth a watch. Visually, it was one of the cooler movies that I've seen. It really felt like the next sort of evolution of what the Fifth Element kind of was trying to bring to the cinematic landscape. And so it's over on Prime right now. Highly recommend watching it. I think I'm going to try to download it before my flight and enjoy it on the plane this week. All right, the last story is obviously we're always talking about sneakers around here. And so I came across this brand called Rad, and I'm just going to read kind of their overview. Brands talk a lot about sustainability, but what does sustainability mean? We wanted to be straight with our customers, so here's what it means to us. The fashion and footwear industry absolutely must reduce its reliance on fossil fuels and do more to preserve the natural world. We're facing a global economical crisis, and everyone is implicated, including us, which is pretty big for a sneaker company to come out and say that, just because, they use rubbers and fabrics and glues. But, I'm starting to see more and more of these sort of boutique brands popping up with, trying to say that they're using less harmful chemicals in the environment. I don't have a pair of these. I'm not sure if they call them RAD or RAD, but I love the silhouettes. It kind of reminds me of something that's coming out from Minling in China. And so I'm probably going to pick up a pair here. If you're over at RAD, can you tell me how to pronounce your company name? But go check them out. I linked to their Instagram and web store. Really cool silhouettes. Love what the brand's doing, and look forward to learning more. As always, the Friday Top 5 is meant to be sort of short, kind of bite-sized. So thanks for tuning in to this short, kind of brief update. I hope you guys enjoy the Masters this weekend, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Don't forget to follow, subscribe to the show on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, YouTube. Don't forget to and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And with that said, catch you next week.